Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel. In this short video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous night at the local time. First we're going to start probably with Rostov-on-Don, the headquarters of the Russian forces in Ukraine, and the most important that the previous night the President of Russian Federation Vladimir Putin visited this area. He had the meetings and he met the head of General Staff, the Valery Gerasimov. As you can see on the video, he arrived on the headquarters of Russian army. He was met with the head of General Staff and they talked, and this is very important because this is very important, and probably Vladimir Putin got the latest updates, latest news from the head of Russian army, and there are a lot of talks, a lot of rumors. Recently we received lots of piece updates regarding the upcoming Russian offensive operation, and probably we know Putin, he's the media personal, and of course every time the Russians publish such a piece of information, every time after such events we see some activation on the combat lines. So, and this is very interesting because more and more sources are saying and confirming their updates regarding the offensive operation in direction of Sumy and Kharkiv area. And furthermore, don't forget that there are a lot of forces, Wagner forces have been accumulated in Belarus and so on. Furthermore, during the previous night the Russians made massive drone missile strike all over the entire Ukraine. The sources are saying that explosions took place in Sumy region, in Poltava region, in the vicinity of Kramatorsk and Slaviansk, and there are a lot of explosions in the western part of Ukraine, in Khmelnytsky, in Zhytomyr region, and in Lvov area. The Ukrainians, as a act of revenge and the act of their response to that situation, launched drones and S-200 missiles in direction of Crimea. The Russians reported that at night, somewhere at 7 a.m. of the local time, they managed to discover the Ukrainian missiles S-200 that were upgraded to be able to use to attack the surface, and they shot them down. So the Ukrainians haven't managed to achieve any results during that attack. Now let's move to the ground. A lot of updates are coming from Kherson area. The Russians published the first video confirmation, normal video confirmation, that we can use as an evidence that they managed to restore control over their bank of Dnipro River. On this video we see the hundreds and dozens pieces of weapon that the Russians managed to capture after they cleared the bridge, Ukrainian foothold in the vicinity of Kazachye Lager. A lot of weapon, a lot of Western weapon, and so on. Furthermore, there are very fierce clashes taking place in the islands between Kherson and Dnipro River, and currently, as I understand, this is going to be the next point of pressure. The Russians, there is an island Veliki Potemkin. These islands is located between Golaya Pristan and Kherson, and currently this is the only island probably on the Dnipro River that controlled by two sides, by the Russians and the Ukrainians. At least we know for sure that eastern part is under Ukraine control. The Russians published the video how they were bombing and shelling the Ukrainian positions, discovered Ukrainian positions. And for example, the Ukrainians from their side published the video of drone strikes against the southeastern part of the same island. On this video we see how the Ukrainians sent the drone, and after that the drone started bombing the Russian positions with small grenades. And as I understand, that was the forces of not this one, probably this one. Yes, of 123rd Defense Brigade. See that this animal, this like dear friend, as I understand, on the shield. Furthermore, during the previous days, we haven't discussed that in the last video, there were a lot of explosions and a lot of Russian strikes in the vicinity of Kherson area. For example, on this video we see how the Russians discovered the Ukrainian boat center, and as a result of strike they destroyed some number of boats that the Ukrainians were using to attack the Russian positions. Furthermore, very interesting video we got from the vicinity of Nikolaev. The Russians managed to discover and to destroy another radar of S-300 system, and as you can see, the Russians were operating very deep inside of the territory of Ukraine, very deep, and we see that the Russians do have such technologies. Now we're moving further to the Zaporozhye area. And first, let's discuss Energodar. This is the second video in a row from this area. The first one was about the quality and the situation on the surface of Kakhovska water reservoir. On this video, according to the Ukrainian sources, there was a meeting of the local authorities, police authorities. The Ukrainians managed to get this piece of information regarding that meeting, and after that, they sent a drone to attack the accumulation of Russian officers and police officers in some building in the central part of Energodar. So we haven't got any updates and numbers regarding the losses. Very fierce fightings continue in the vicinity of Orekhov. Today the Ukrainians published the video of an episode of battles and clashes inside of the settlement. On this video we see how two Ukrainians were trying to hide under the fire of Russian artillery, Russian machine gunners, and so on. So basically, the Ukrainians still inside of Robotina. The Russians are also in the settlement, but neither the Russians nor the Ukrainians are able to develop their positions and to capture and establish final control over the settlement. When talking about the Russians, of course, we understand that the main trenches on the east and the main trenches on the south is very important positions that the Ukrainians still can't penetrate and to crack this net. The Russians continue attacking and bombing the Ukrainian positions among the fields, their accumulation of their forces, the movements of armored vehicles in movements, and for example in this video we see another drone strike against the Ukrainian positions along the trenches in this area. We will not see the video till the end because of video of casualties among people. Furthermore, the Russians continue counter-artillery duels, and as a result of one of those attacks, the Russians managed to destroy another M777 howitzer that located in the vicinity of Mala Takmachka. Basically, we see that Ukrainians, that the Russians managed to establish all types of superiority in this area: tank, armor superiority, artillery superiority, drone superiority. But no matter this fact, the Ukrainians continue sending more and more forces in this area. And today, the Western deployment map has been updated, and currently we can find in this small salient such brigades like 82nd Air Assault Brigade, the newly created brigade from strategical reserves with strikers on board and challengers. We have 117th Brigade, we have 118th Brigade, we have 47th Mechanized Brigade, we have 116th Mechanized Brigade, we have 46th Air Mobile Brigade, we have 14th Operational Brigade of National Guard, we have 78th Regiment Hearts, we have Skala Assault Battalion. Significant number of forces. The Ukrainians are sending more and more waves of soldiers to the certain days, and still we don't see any chances for the Ukrainians to capture this territory. I'll remind you that on the 24th of August is the Independence Day of Ukraine, and obviously the Ukrainians will try to achieve some results by the date to get some media victory and just to provide some positive information to Ukrainian population. The Russians continue artillery duels in the vicinity of Gulay Pole, and as a result of another artillery strike, the Russians managed to destroy the Ukrainian local operational position. We are using this video just for geolocation. The author of this video claims that as a result of artillery strike, they managed to destroy a stronghold of Ukrainian forces. So basically this territory, as you can see according to this version of the map, is under Russian control, but before the next video we will update the map, and this territory will be shown, this one, as the territory under Ukrainian control, and we will move the Russian positions a little bit further to the south. When talking about Iremivka tactical bridgehead, we haven't received nothing during the previous nights. The Ukrainians, after failed attempt to attack among the fields when they were completely defeated, took a decision to make a small operational pause. The Russians continue attacking the Ukrainians with Lancet. The Ukrainians tried to accumulate and concentrate some forces, some critical mass in Makarovka, Urozhain, Staromayorskaya. The Russians are doing everything they can, but not to allow the Ukrainians to do this. And as a result of drone strikes, artillery strikes, they tried to destroy as many as possible Ukrainian armored vehicles. The Russians continue counter-artillery duels in the vicinity of Novomikhailivka, Krasnogorovka. Another artillery system was destroyed somewhere in the vicinity of Bagayevlenka. In this video we can see how the Russian Lancet drone discovered and destroyed the Ukrainian M777 howitzer. As we discussed, as I told you, this is my favorite front line, Novomikhailivka, Krasnogorovka, because as I see and I expect some intensifying tank of actions from the Russian side, and probably when talking about a possible offensive direction, tactical offensive direction, I expect that there are going to be movements and activity in this direction, because if we increase the number of updates, we see how much the Russians, we see the Russian concentration in this area. Now we are moving further to the north, and we're going to talk about Donetsk. The Ukrainians continue bombing and shelling the settlement with the cluster rounds, and during the previous night, one cluster rounds haven't detonated, and when people were walking around this area after the end of the artillery strike, one of the cluster rounds detonated and few civilians were killed as a result of that situation. When talking about Klishchevka, we haven't received nothing from this front line during the previous night, and we got some updates from Tarskoye area. The Russians continue bombing and shelling the Ukrainian positions in this area. On this video we see how the Russians discovered another Ukrainian tank, and as a result of artillery strike, that tank was destroyed. So we see the Russians, and this is not the first update from this area. If we increase the number of updates, we see that the Russians are bombing and shelling the Ukrainians along the Tarskoye. We see that the Ukrainians don't have a very big bridgehead, so they need to stretch their forces, and this entire main street is under Russian control, and we see the Russian concentration along the main street of the settlement by the name of Tarskoye. So anyway, sooner or later the Russians will continue offensive operation in this direction as well. When talking about Kupiansk-Liman, we haven't received nothing during the previous night, just another video from the Ukrainians, how they attacked and bombed the Russian positions using the drone. So another area where the Ukrainians established some drone control over the main supply and support roads. And that's it for today. Military Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.